and share my screen and we'll get started. First, I wanted to just show you guys, I've had some questions pop up on how to track this week's challenge. So if you'll notice in week 2, our challenge is to do movement breaks. So hopefully you can get some time in the morning and the afternoons at work or wherever you're at, even if it's at home, getting a few minutes of movement. So the individual tab, just each time you get your movement break in, just click the box so you can get points. If any of those happen to be with colleagues for your team, then you also meet the team requirement as well. So it could just be a pair of you that help meet the team box, or your whole team could do it together. It just needs to be one pair at least minimum doing something together, but hopefully your whole team can get together to help you break that. So, but I know not all teams are working in the same spot in the same location. So if you're able to at least get together with one other person, that is great. And so hopefully across your team, someone is able to help the team out with that. So all that to say, it could be duplicative. You could track it for your individual, but also it count for your team as well, if that makes sense. So, okay. We'll get started. If you have questions throughout this presentation, you can come off mute. You can try to raise your hand. I'll try to pay attention to that, or you can put your questions in the chat as we go, but feel free to interrupt as we go through because I know questions will come up. Today, we're in week 2, so we're going to talk about nutrition basics, and we'll dive into macronutrients primarily today. So let's get started. What are some basics of nutrition? So we're going to learn about macronutrients. Those are fat, protein, and carb. The main fuel blocks for our body. We'll briefly touch on reading food labels and ingredient lists too to help weave that into our nutrition education today. So let me present this better because that probably would be better for you guys, huh? Okay, so in the science world, in nutrition, we classify the food that we eat, the energy our body needs, as macro and micronutrients. Macronutrients are huge sources of energy to our body. They consist of fat, proteins, or carbohydrate foods. Alcohol also contributes a significant amount of calories if alcohol is included in your diet. Then there are micronutrients, and those rarely produce any sort of caloric energy to the body, but they do still help with processes and enzyme creation and hormone stuff. And those would be your vitamins and your minerals. But we're going to focus on the big macros because that's what brings the calories into our body. And they're important. Food is wonderful, right? We've got to eat it and we've got to enjoy it. So these macronutrients provide extreme amounts of energy to our body, which helps us grow, supports growth, supports repair and maintenance of the body and all the systems going on to sustain our daily lives. So these are good things. And I just already mentioned, but the 3 macronutrients are fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. So we're going to start with fat. My favorite one. Fat is the highest caloric source of energy our body gets per gram. So if you ate a gram of fat, you're contributing 9 calories to your body. And most of us think of calories as a way to gain weight, but calories are essentially energy to the body. It's what we burn to get all of our systems working, which are good things. So you get a lot of bang for your buck here. And so if you grew up in the 90s, you were kind of told not to eat fat, right? Because obviously that gives you a lot of extra calories, and that's probably going to be why you gain weight. But hopefully we can disprove that myth here today. Fat is essential. So you should and need to be eating fat every day. Don't think of it as the enemy, as maybe some of us were educated back in our earlier years. It provides long-lasting energy. It's very not like the huge spikes that you get from carbohydrates and sugars, but fat is a very slow burning fuel, which is great to the body. It also aids in the absorption of certain vitamins and minerals, those particularly being fat-soluble vitamins and minerals. So if you notice, like in your milk, they add in extra vitamins like A, D, E, and K. If you're not drinking or eating fat along with that skim glass of milk, it's going to be hard for the body to absorb those vitamins and minerals. So choose fat and pair it with things that you're eating so that your body can absorb all those nutrients that you're eating. Switch to whole milk if you need to. I love it. That helps ensure you're getting all those vitamins, minerals. Putting butter on your vegetables so you can absorb all the vitamins and minerals. You know, those are things we should be doing. Fat also helps hormone production and functioning. This is a big one too. People who are malnourished or undernourished or not eating enough fat and stuff can have fertility issues and reproductive and digestive and all sorts of other issues with their body. And it is particularly helpful to our brain. 60% of our brain is made up of fat, so we definitely need good fats in there to help with the brain. And it's been linked, we'll talk about it on the next slide, I think, but more and more research is coming out about how essential good fats are to brain health and reducing our risk for dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and all those neurological things. Because if any of you guys had an InBody, I don't know if I talked about this on last week's Lunch and Learn, but on your InBody sheet, there was a section where it talked about water ratios. And if it was into the 4s, that sort of was a signal for inflammation to the body. And that meant water was escaping those cells, right? And fat is what makes the wall of all of our cells. So if we're not getting good fats, those cell walls get a little wobbly and then our water is not contained as well. So vital to our health, fat is. More benefits. I already touched these, but it's creating those healthy cell walls, like I just said. That helps with metabolism, helps with sugar, it helps with neuron connections, all sorts of things. It actually increases fat burning, which sounds counterintuitive, but it's super helpful. Cuts your hunger pains because obviously we're feeling more full for longer. It can reduce fat storage. So again, counterintuitive. Can help you lose weight, can help with improving your cholesterol and triglyceride numbers, which is something crazy and probably the opposite of what we were taught 15, 20 years ago. Boost cognition, learning, happiness, memory, all those brain functions like I just talked about, has been shown to decrease depression, anxiety, and other sorts of neurological disorders. And it supports good skin, supple skin, body characteristics like mobile joints, healthy nails and hair. So great to have fats. Now, of course, they need to be good fats. So generally fats are classified 3 different ways: trans fats, saturated fats, and unsaturated fats. Unsaturated fats traditionally have always been talked about as the good fats, and they continue to be. So these are things that are like olive oil, nuts and seeds and avocados, avocado oil, fish oils, fatty acids, those kinds of things. They generally tend to be more liquidy at room temperature, so that's kind of a way to figure out, is this a good source or not? However, then there are vegetable oils like corn oil and soybean oil and those kind of things. They're also liquid at room temperature, right? So in our minds, we're thinking, those are good things. But we have to be careful in this where it comes into reading our ingredient list on how they make those particular oils. Most of the time, they heat press them, so they raise that oil or fat to a certain temperature. And this is to create shelf stability. But in doing so, they change the composition of the chemicals in that fat and turn them into a trans fat. So they started out good, but the way they processed it to keep it shelf stable was they heated it to a high enough temperature that it then turned into a trans fat or a man-made sort of fat. You can do that to olive oil too. So just because olive oil is great doesn't mean you can deep fat fry in it, right? Because you're totally changing the structure of that fat once you heat it to that temperature. So try to eat the fats in their natural state, and then that will help you as well. Saturated fats used to get a terrible rap. They've started to pull that back a little bit, and we're finding a lot of benefit to the fats that are found in saturated fats. So these are going to be where meat and your dairy fats are found, animal meats, milks, your cottage cheese and your yogurts and things like that, butter, ghee, lard, coconut oils, that kind of stuff. Those are good. Obviously, I wouldn't just focus on eating all of those. You need other nutrients, but don't be afraid. Like I said, these are great fats to add to things like vegetables or, those bland green beans or peas or something. That's going to help you absorb the nutrients from those vegetables, but also give you some of that fat to help keep you full and satisfied. And in the long run, you'll likely eat less throughout the day because you're fueling your body with good quality fuels and calories. And then, of course, trans fats, these are things we want to stay away from. You would think in America we would get rid of these by now, and we tried to. In, I think, 2018, they passed a law where you could no longer have trans fats in foods. However, there's a little asterisk in the law, and so you can still put 0 on the food labels as long as it's under 0.5 grams of trans fat in the product. And you're thinking, well, that's not that big of a deal. But when you look and read ingredient lists, you'll see fats in a lot of different things listed in the ingredient list, but then it'll still say 0 trans fat on the food label. So if you took all the foods that did have some sort of hydrogenated oil or something and listed, 0.5 plus 0.5 plus 0.5 plus 0.5, by the end of the day, you're probably at 5 or 6 grams of trans fat, and the acceptable is 0, right? So we're still getting it, unfortunately, in our American diet, even though we're not supposed to have it in there. And the food ingredients say we're not getting it, it's still slipping in. And primarily these are found in processed foods or fast foods. So here's an example of this. You can see on this particular food label, it says 0 trans fat. So you're like, great. But then you read in the ingredient list and you see that evil word, hydrogenated oil. Well, that's a trans fat. That's a man-made fat that was heated too high. So this might have been in a piece of bread, maybe a cookie I ate later, maybe a hamburger bun, all that kind of stuff. So if I add all those different foods I might eat in one day, again, I'm probably getting a decent amount of trans fat in my diet, in the traditional American diet. Here's some of the foods that most of the times you can find fast food or trans fat still in. Okay, let's move on to carbohydrates. Another good food. This used to be the whole focus in the 90s on what we should be eating because it doesn't have fat, and so it should be super healthy for us and help us lose weight, but it didn't work that way. Carbs are a low-calorie food, which, again, back in the 90s, we're like, oh, if we don't eat a lot of calories, we won't gain a lot of weight. There's only 4 calories to 1 gram of carbohydrate, aka sugar. All carbohydrates are sugar in their simplest forms. Carbs traditionally are the most single important source of fuel for most of our bodies. Some people are more ketogenic in their diets where they try to eliminate carbs or really cut down, so it's not going to be a huge source. But for most Americans who are on a typical American diet, carbohydrates are the #1 source of our fuel. And they provide lots of good benefits. They have lots of vitamins and minerals in most of these food groups. They provide antioxidants and vital nutrients, and they're instant energy to our body. We can use these right away and help when our body needs the fuel. But it certainly comes down to choosing the right carbohydrates and not just any old carbohydrate or low carbohydrate. Choosing the right carbs, and we'll talk about those in a bit, will help you lose weight. It will help medicinally heal different kinds of conditions, improve your metabolism, give you a healthy gut flora, which we know is linked to so many things, helps fight against cancers and remove those toxins from the body, and can give us great energy for fitness and performance and activity and stuff like that. I could go through the same list and say that terrible carb diets will do the exact opposite to all these things. It will make you gain weight. It will cause illnesses and disease. It will slow your metabolism. It will ruin your gut health. It will cause and increase your risk for cancer. It will diminish your peak performances and fitness levels and give you fatigue and brain fog and all that kind of stuff. So carbohydrates themselves are not the enemy, but you got to know to eat the right carbohydrates and avoid the low quality carbohydrates. And so we're going to talk about that. Good quality carbs typically have a low glycemic index. That means they don't spike your blood sugars too high, and they generally do that because they have a lot of fiber associated with them. And fiber is sort of like that balancing mechanism to help the blood sort of slow down how much sugar is absorbed into the body. You're going to find high quality carbs in most of our fruits and vegetables, and primarily the fibrous ones. So if you're eating an apple, keep the skin on it because that's where most of the fiber is. If you're having potatoes, keep the skin on that baked potato. If you're having grapes, keep the skin on it, that kind of stuff. Vegetables, awesome. All vegetables, keep going. Eat as many as you can. Legumes, those are going to be your beans and peas and things like that, very fibrous. Whole grains, most of us probably aren't buying 100% whole grain breads or brown rice and stuff, but those are going to be our higher fiber choices for carbohydrates and lower glycemic index numbers. So those are good things to choose for. Middle of the road, things are going to be like potatoes or squashy, starchier carbohydrates like potatoes and sweet potatoes and peas and carrots, those are still fine. And we'll talk about this with protein later, but when you're eating things that have a little bit more higher sugar content, but are still what you would think like a fruit or vegetable, just making sure you're pairing it with something fibrous to help the body slow down that absorption is good, or a fat or a protein to help it slow down as well. And we'll talk about that in a bit. The things we do want to avoid that spike our blood pressure and do all that host of things I just talked about are low quality carbs. These generally have high glycemic indexes. So they raise our blood sugars super high, super fast, and then our body doesn't know what to do and it crashes and it ruins things like our metabolism and our gut health and that kind of stuff. Most of these are processed foods or probably not natural. Breads, pastas, cookies, cakes, crackers, chips, all that pop and soda and the creamers and the fillers that we put in our coffees and our energy drinks and that kind of stuff. Those are things that generally spike our blood sugars, have a lot of added sugars, and then drop us right back down. So in this, I also added dark chocolate is a low glycemic food, and it doesn't have, I mean, it's bitter, right? Because it doesn't have a lot of sugar. So it can be a part of your diet. It's just going to taste different than traditional chocolate we eat. So what's happening with America? Most of us, unfortunately, are overweight. I think right now, Cerro Gordo County is sitting around 70% of people that are overweight in the adult ages, which is unfortunate, but you can kind of see why. Here's a little snapshot I pulled from the CDC. They have been tracking sugar consumption. In 1776, when we first started here in America, we averaged 4 pounds of sugar eaten per year, which still seems sort of like a lot. Today, 348 pounds of sugar per person. Yikes. Like it's in everything, right? It's so hard to buy something that doesn't have added sugars these days, unfortunately. I will say we are starting to see improvements. If you see this little chart, you can see we had some drastic movement here in the last half century. Since about 2000, though, we've really started to come off that, thank goodness. And you see sugar in the news all the time on how terrible it is for you. So hopefully this is nothing new I'm sharing, but I hope we continue to see that go down and get some better eating habits. We'll contribute a little bit to our own government, our own selves at Public Health. We used this food pyramid for a long time, and right at the bottom, eat the most, are those unhealthy, high glycemic index carb foods, right? So we caused our own problem. And why is sugar bad? Like you just said, carbohydrates were great for us. They are, but if we're not moving a lot and needing a lot of extra calories or energy that our body is intaking through food, the body converts all those sugars into fat. It can't store excess amounts of sugars and as glycogen, and it can't store extra amounts of protein if we're eating all that kind of stuff. The only way it can store things is if it turns it into fat. So it's turning all this extra sugar that we're consuming into fat, and that's why our obesity and our overweight levels are going up in this country. So if you are someone who's overweight or looking to lose weight, it's probably not because you have too much fat in your diet. It's because you probably have too many carbohydrates in your diet and too many low quality carbs that are then converted to fat in the body. Here's a little example. When you eat that cupcake, it goes through the stomach, it breaks down those carbohydrates into different types of sugar, glucose and fructose. Fructose is then sent to the liver, where if you don't need it, it's turned into triglycerides. That's sort of a lipid marker with your cholesterol checks. If it's turned into glucose, it can go to your muscles, where your muscles will use it for energy. So if you're someone who works out, that's a great mechanism, right? We need that energy. We need to build muscles. But for someone who's not very good at exercising enough, it's going straight into adipose, which is fat tissue. So too much sugar, again, is what's leading to our weight gain. Okay, let's start to the next one, protein. This is another great macronutrient for the body. This is the building block of our life. It's also a low calorie source, just the same as carbohydrates, only get 4 calories per gram of protein you eat. So very lean, low energy food, but provides a lot of benefit to the body. It's sort of like the glue that holds us all together. It helps build hormones, antibodies, muscle, bones, tissues, ligaments, fingernails, hair. It builds everything in us. And similar to carbohydrates, protein cannot be stored as protein. If you're not going to use it when you eat it, the body either will store it to fat. It'll excrete a little bit, but it will just store it to fat as well. Another good thing to know is that protein needs to be eaten throughout your day. You can't like bulk up on protein at one meal and hope that it will last you all day. The body needs to continually be eating protein because it can only use what's available at that time. Like I said, it's not going to store protein, and once it's converted to fat, it can't pull it back out and make it protein again. So you got to continually have protein, probably at every meal and every snack would be my recommendation to make sure your body can have it for what it needs. And that's why if you've been following a lot of the trends lately on how to lose weight, they say focus on eating a lot of protein. And that's because, again, your body can use these to help rev up your metabolism, help you build muscle, all those sorts of things that can then help you lose weight. Lots of benefits to protein. I already said this, it's the building block. It helps in repair. So it's huge if you're someone who works out and stuff to be eating protein because there's always that time for recovery. That's super important, and protein can play a part in that. It oxygenates our blood. There are protein carriers in our blood that actually trap the oxygen and take it to where it needs to be. So we definitely need it. Helps our digestion. Over half of the protein we eat is needed for the enzymes in our digestive system to make those processes work. It helps regulate our hormones, particularly during times of like major transformation in our body. When you're going through puberty as an adolescent, when you're going through your childbearing years and raising a human inside of you, that kind of stuff definitely relies on protein. Menopause, different significant shifts in our life heavily rely on protein. And that can help in fitness and performance, like I already mentioned, but it's helping with recovery, helps you prevent muscle loss. In fact, it helps you gain muscle and can help you curb your hunger too. So good benefits of protein as well. This is more scientific. I won't get too much into this. There's different types of protein. There's non-essential and essential. And you'll hear about this maybe if you're like a vegan or a vegetarian. Essential amino acids or essential protein are things that the body can't make themselves. We can actually make amino acids, aka protein, but not all types of protein the body needs. So that's why we have to eat it. And some of that stuff is only found in animal or dairy products and stuff, or if you put certain types of plant products together. So vegetarians and vegans have to be really conscious of what kind of foods they're eating so that they make sure they're getting all the essential proteins they need if they're not getting it from animal sources, because animal sources have complete protein profiles. More than you needed to know, but good sources of protein, obviously animal sources. So your meats, your fish, your chicken, turkey, eggs, dairy products, cottage cheese, yogurts, milks, cheeses. Plant sources, good choices as well. Legumes like beans, peas, seeds are good. Nuts have good things. And then there's even man-made sources, soy and tofu. Many of you might be doing protein powders. And even grains and cereals have protein in them. So animal sources have a complete protein profile, so they have all required essential amino acids in them. The plant and engineered sources, you usually have to combine in different, make sure you're getting them in your diet so that you can get all the different sources, because one particular food doesn't have the complete lineup. That's what I'm trying to say. So all that to say, now that we know that protein's good for us, fat's good for us, and the right carbs are good for us, what should we be eating? The big takeaway here is quality over quantity and quality over calories. I'm not a big person to be a calorie counter. I think it's better to focus on the quality of calories you're putting on your body. So certainly 3,500 calories does equate to a pound, but your body treats it differently on what those 3,500 calories look like. Are they good calories or are they not so healthy calories? That's going to impact your metabolism. It's going to impact a whole bunch of different things. So focus on the quality of foods you're eating. And I think you're naturally going to see, if weight loss is your goal, you're naturally going to see that start to happen. If better health and brain fatigue are a focus, I think those things will also take care of themselves if you really focus on quality rather than quantity or how many calories you're eating. Here's a good example. If you need something visually, what I say is that at every snack and every meal you're having, try to think about, do I have a protein source here? Do I have a healthy fat source in this? And do I have the right or healthy carb in this combination of snack food I'm eating? We want every macro present so that it can help balance right? The high sugar spike that we might get from a carb, the longevity of the fat and protein can help subside that. So, don't just eat a bag of chips. That's all carbohydrate. That's just straight sugar, straight back down, right? So think about trying to get all 3 macros at your meals and really your snacks too. Here's some examples of some snacks. I think this is hard to think about because I'm just like you guys, a bag of chips, perfect. I'll call that a snack, but that's not a good quality carb, right? Celery and peanut butter, great option. You've got carbohydrates, but then the peanut butter throws in that healthy fat and protein. Pears or apples with cheese slices, another great option. That pear or that apple has your fiber and the carbohydrate, but then that cheese is bringing in your fat and your protein. Yogurt with fruit, nuts and seeds with fruit, milk with fruit, and make it whole milk so that you get that extra fat in there, right? To make sure you can absorb all those vitamins. Cottage cheese with fruit, carrots and hummus, ranch dressing and vegetables. Dip your celery and carrots and broccoli and ranch. If it's going to get you to eat vegetables instead of a bag of chips, do it. It's got, and you can find better ranches, but regardless, they're going to have some fat in them to help you balance out that carb. Little Lunchables, meat, cracker, and a vegetable sandwich. So again, focus on protein, fat, and make sure that carbohydrate has some fiber with it so that it doesn't spike your blood sugars. Okay, real quickly, we're almost there. Food labels. When you're looking at food labels, hopefully you all know how to read these, but we've got total fat. That's at the top of the food label towards the top. Then it does have to break it down into if there's any trans fat. Now they should all be saying 0, but again, they might have some hidden in the ingredient list. Later on, we've got total carbohydrates, and then it should list if there's any fiber in that. So this particular food doesn't look like it has much fiber, so it might not be my best choice, right? We want to see some fiber in there, and we definitely want to limit these added sugars down here. And then at the very bottom will be the amount of protein, and it'd be great to have a lot of protein too. And then there's vitamin minerals, which we won't talk about today. Some tips on reading your ingredient list. Ingredient lists are listed as by volume. So the first ingredient has the most amount in the product, and the last ingredient is the least amount in the product. So this particular thing must be bread, I'm assuming, but first ingredient is enriched wheat flour. Anything enriched typically tells me they stripped the fiber from it. Corn syrup, sugar, partially hydrogenated soybean and palm oils, sucrose, dextrose, more corn syrup, more fructose, blah, 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 blah. Anything that ends in ROSE or OSE is typically a sugar. And then we've got the trans fats here and some bleached stripped flour. So we lost all the fiber. So this is probably a white loaf of bread. Over here, we've got 100% whole wheat flour, water, soybean oil, molasses. So we still got trans fats here. Obviously, we've got some fiber built in, which is good. A little bit better than the white bread choice, but overall, bread is a lower carb choice than, vegetables or something like that. So some quick tips. Make sure the ingredient list is short. It's probably healthier. Make sure you can understand what the ingredients actually say. Probably is less man-made and includes little or no sugars. Focus on whole grains if possible. When reading those. So much more to cover, but we're out of time. But does anyone have any questions before I let you all go? A lot to talk about, but I think the big thing is don't be scared to eat fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Just make sure you're choosing quality foods, right? And that's always the challenge. So. Okay. I don't see any questions. Next week, we're also going to have a nutrition lesson. So we'll keep going. We'll keep building on this one. And we'll talk about kind of meal planning. I'll touch on some of the popular trends, the eating diet trends, I guess you want to call them, that people are doing right now, like keto versus fasting versus low carb, all those kind of things. So we'll try to touch on some of that too. So, okay. I'll be done and you guys can enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for attending.
Thank you, Kelly.